Thanks for joining me today, Andy. I'm really excited about this role. I can't wait to take it to market. So I thought what would be a brilliant idea is just to give the audience, paint a bit of a picture about the trust, how procurement is viewed, and then we can talk a little bit more about the role in some more detail. Does that work for you?
Yeah, it does, Hayley. Great to see you as well this afternoon. So probably just worthwhile a little bit about the trust, really. So University Hospital Plymouth is I believe it's the biggest single site hospital in the UK. There will be bigger hospitals, but they have multiple buildings where we've got a single building pretty much. Got 8,000 staff. We cater for, I think it's about 457,000 people for secondary care. But then because we're a specialist hospital, accident, they'll get helicoptered in and planed and ambulanced into the hospital. We cover a wider population of about 2 million, so it's one of the bigger hospitals in the UK. And from a procurement perspective, I came from private sector. 2007, I used to work in global manufacturing and supply chain management for an OEM manufacturer to HP, Dell, IBM, those types of companies. I'm an engineer by background, and just getting a bit tired of travel abroad and being away from family. Wanted to look at switching sectors. Health at the time was paying a bit more money than I was earning. But I did recognise that I was taking a step back in seniority and responsibility. So that was 2007, came in similar to this role on large infrastructure schemes, not to the scale of this role that we're talking about today. But, I think at the time it was about 40-50 million pound project at the time. This one's about 125 million, just one of the schemes. Just loved it. And I think this sector, I don't think there's any, having worked for profit all my life, to work for not for profit and for more altruistic reasons, you'd argue, it just chimed with me anyway, and my values, and felt very different to profit.
Yeah.
And I think that's when you make a connection in this role with why you're here and the difference it makes to people and health and well-being and improvement and life. For me personally, it's the best job I've had, and I've had some good jobs in my career as well. So came in 2007, worked on capital projects. Then my background, I'm a Six Sigma lean practitioner as well from my engineering days, driven a lot by statistics, removing waste, inefficiencies, etc. I then moved into looking at the supply chain across the hospital, because that was just something that I'd done for a number of years and not a great strength of the NHS. Mm-hmm. So in that time, we've implemented inventory systems, built warehouses, optimized inventory, to improve the service and availability at the point of care. And then the progression then for me was then to take over the department 4 years after I arrived, and that was over 10 years ago. And I think that's probably a really good example of the opportunity that exists in the NHS for people coming from the private sector. That there's a world of opportunity. And that's, I've just given you an insight into the trust. Now I have a national role with NHS England and improvement that I've had for 4 years, because we're seen as highly credible, both within the organisation, with non-execs, with execs. We've got a really highly credible brand within the organisation, but then regionally within the NHS and nationally. And although the league table hasn't been published for about a year now, when it was, the regulator has a league table of procurement performance by each of the 135 acute hospitals in the NHS. And for the last two publications, which was the last year of its publication prior to COVID, our team and this trust procurement and supply chain management team ranked number one. and has always been in the top 5. So, you know, what you're coming to here is a highly credible team, both recognised within the organisation and outside of the organisation.
How have you gone about that? Because, you know, different NHS trusts will have a different view of procurement and how that sits or adds value within an organisation. And clearly you've got it right. You know, what are you attributing that success to, and that credibility piece?
Yeah, do you know what I put it down to? Bloody hard work and results. And how we've been able to deliver that is through talent. You know, I remember when I first came to the NHS, 55% of the team, so that my team today within the trust is, I forget the number now, it's probably about 60 people. We've probably got about 35 people who physically move products, the physical supply chain. So we deal with 2,800 suppliers. We buy 175,000 unique items a year. That's 6 times bigger than the biggest Tesco's. You know, I've got 3 times more inventory than the biggest Tesco's in the Southwest. It's a big infrastructure. You know, we have 30,000 people roughly on site a day. That's a small town, you know, with visitors, etc. So this is a big context. And when I first came, 55% of the team, of that 60 or so people, probably about 50 when I first came, were band 3 or below. So we're earning less than about 20,000 per year. So it's very much a transactional team.
Yeah.
But did have some strategic procurement as well. More advanced than many of the hospitals across the NHS. But when you compare it to the private sector, really significantly different in the volume of resources in strategic and complex commercial matters. Fast forward now, I don't know what the latest figures are. I wish I had them in my head, but we've got far more now. That the balance of the team has shifted very much to give more balance to strategic and complex commercial matters. And over that period then, you know this, Hayley, traditionally a lot of NHS procurement teams just deal with medical and surgical, might do a bit of IT, don't really they're kept out of other matters. I can guarantee you every single commercial penny in this organisation, other than drugs, which you need a chief pharmacy for, every single commercial element comes through my team. And what I think is different for my team is that we have taken on commercial bidding and driving income, which is unusual. There are a few trusts doing that. So we're not just procurement and supply chain management, we're then commercial as well. And that's come from how I've been taught in manufacturing was deliver some value. I then asked for a little bit of that money back to reinvest, and we invest in new posts, attracted more talent, and we've constantly built on that thinking, really. And today we have a broad number of people in that salary bracket above the 40k mark, and them being solely responsible for some complex commercial matters in that category management of methodology. So it's come from hard work, absolute results, proving that we're capable and delivering what we said we would. The job's easy when you can do that.
Perfect. And let's talk about the projects that you've got in the pipeline. So this role in particular, which is all about building kind of the Future Hospital Programme that the government have set out. Why don't you kind of tell the audience about what that project ultimately looks like for this individual?
Yeah, so they may have heard of, probably called crudely in the press, Boris's new hospitals, but there was an announcement, I forget, probably 18 months, it might have even been before the election actually, where this announcement of 40 new hospitals, and Plymouth has always been in that group. And initially we have got funding for the scheme, and I urge you, I've sent you a link to the video. I'd urge anybody who's interested in this role, watch the video. It will really bring to life the scheme. So the first phase is a significant in scale extension to our emergency department. So for those who rough explanation of how hospitals work, generally there are two pathways into the hospital, either through planned care, so you get a letter, come in on this day, you will have a procedure, or emergency care, you come in through the emergency department. And that's our constraint as a hospital. We've outgrown the current facility. So this first phase, 126 million scheme, is to build a four floor extension onto the front of the hospital that gives us more capacity, but also an ability to integrate elements of care within the emergency department process. So pretty much around imaging and diagnostics. So generally, when you come into that emergency department, you'll go through some diagnostic care process to try to identify what is the matter with you, or what is your ailment, for it to be treated. So there'll be imaging equipment, diagnostic processes that will be integrated and in this new facility that enables more efficient care and integrated care. So that's the big chunk of this program. And then the second phase is then to build a circa £600 million new hospital, and that is then probably would help the hospital. And I'm not that up to the technical details on this, but I believe it's then for us where you'd like to get to in healthcare is to separate emergency care and planned care. And our hospital is a single site where it's all integrated. Yeah. And if the pressure is always coming emergency, it stops the planned care being delivered. And that's where you've probably heard in the press now the stories of the waiting lists of extending because of COVID, because that's medical patients. So if you can separate one from the other, it removes that impact that medical care, or the medical take as they call it, has on planned care. Yeah. And that's what a new hospital would give us this freedom to just breathe and spread out more.
Equal priority. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, one is as important as the other, emergency and planned care. It's all about making people well, living longer. So yeah, it's. I mean, for this city, it's fantastic. I grew up watching this hospital. I grew up in the shadow of this hospital being built, literally in the shadow of it, on an estate just by the hospital called Thornbury or Estover. And I remember we've got a big tower in Incinerator Hospital, and I remember that watching that emerge from the ground. Wow. When it was first built. So for some of us, the chance to be involved in building something that's going to shape this hospital and the lives of our population for the next 20, 30 years, it's quite a proud moment for a number of us. So
how long do you anticipate the first stage taking, that first phase?
So that would probably take us up to about 221 now, about 224, 225. Okay. Yeah, that's the sort of I think 224 probably. We're at the moment we're mid business case, so we're in the and for anybody who's going to apply, I'd encourage them to Google the Treasury Green Book process, because that's the business case process we're having to go through, and we will help you learn that. But it's a significant process to get an approval for capital investment and sign off. So we're at the OBC stage. So there's basically 3 stages. We're at the second stage now, and are probably going to submit that in the next 5 to 6 months. So then you've got your commercial, your procurement to appoint the vendors, get your designs done, get your final costing, and then you submit your final business case, and then start build. So we're probably looking, I think, probably about 18 months of business case process,
Yeah.
And then you're probably into a 2-year build, I would think, something like that. But those are just off the top of my head. I'm not close enough to it day to day to know the real detail of it. But.
So what do you need from this person? What are the key skills and behaviours that you are looking for that means this person can be successful in this build, in this role?
Yeah, immediately what comes to mind, clearly they must be technically competent and have experience of large infrastructure projects. Let me just type something here and I'll just be able to demonstrate through conversation experience of large infrastructure projects, be that public or private sector. I know that what it's like to transition from private to public. And whilst I'd love people to have experience of the public contract regulations and running formal tenders as we have to do in the public sector, yeah, it's a nice to have, but I'd put above that is the commercial experience of large infrastructure schemes, whether you do a formal tender, public tender, or run a private procurement. The stages and what you consider are not that much different. And if the person that comes to us hasn't got public contract regulations experience, they're not going to be alone in this role. We will absolutely give them the training and development they need, get them exposed to what they need to know, and support them through the process. This role reports into a chap called Chris Rapson, who's really, really experienced in those matters. So having that competency in large capital schemes, what I personally put above all of that is the soft skills. This game's all about relationships, as far as I'm concerned, and the stakeholders in this project are going to be wide and varied. They're going to be national. They're going to be the regulators. Maybe some Department of Health colleagues will get involved from time to time. You're going to be exposed to chief execs, non-execs, the public, maybe the media might come into play. So having that person who's comfortable in those types of environments or has had some exposure to them, even if they're not comfortable, and to be able to hold a conversation with any one of those stakeholders is really, really important. So those skills naturally about building rapport, really actively listening, having that, being able to comfortably, in a relaxed way, have a conversation with anyone at any level. That's a really important skill. And to be able to just relax and really listen to people, sometimes that's not a skill that comes naturally to many. But I'm expecting the candidates that we're going to be looking at is competent, yet tick. Yeah, those things is those elements. I've got an expectation that they're going to have the knowledge that we need. And there will be a panel that will test that technical competency out. I won't be on it. I really want to get a feel for the person. We constantly talk about recruiting for fit.
Yeah.
So in our team, we have fun, we have laughter, we're energetic, we're tough, we're quite high expectations of one another. But we do everything with a smile on our face, and it's really important that we support one another. We're compassionate, we're caring. The environment we're in, sort of dictates that. But you'd be a fish out of water if you didn't have those values and beliefs. So I'm at that point now where I'm recruiting. The sort of things that I consider is more around how they're going to fit in. Am I going to get on with them? Are they going to get on with other people? Are they going to be able to challenge what might be some views that maybe are the wrong ones? Does that answer the question, Hayley?
It does, yeah. And I think it's really encouraging that you're not kind of limiting your search to people that have got that OJU piece, because like you say, I know it's a regulation, it can be taught, you've proven yourself, you've come from the private sector into the public sector without any prior knowledge of it. And that's something that you've got in spades in terms of your team and that deep-rooted knowledge. So for this, yes, you've got to come with the background of capital projects and infrastructure, but you could have gained that from the private sector. And actually, this is then more about assessing the fit, like you say, the interaction with key stakeholders. And I think that'll be refreshing for a lot of people, that you're not kind of limiting the talent pool as a result of that. What would you say about kind of supporting people's learning and development? Because I know you've got a best-in-class function there, and you've probably more than any trust I've ever spoken to have a really good program in place to support people's learning and development. So could you just talk us through that?
Yes. So again, for prospective candidates, I'd encourage you to Google positive purchasing. Jonathan O'Brien is the owner there. He's one of the, I'd argue, the foremost authors in the globe on category management. Has done some fantastic books on negotiation as well, and supply relationship management. In the NHS, we were the first trust to launch its own procurement academy. And alongside that, we have direct face-to-face training, probably not at the moment, but over MS Teams now. I know Jonathan is running the courses on each of those subject matters. Prospective candidate, I'd encourage them to Google positive purchasing, who are the provider of our procurement academy. It was the first of type in the NHS. Jonathan, who's the owner of positive purchasing, I'd argue is probably the foremost author on category management, and goes around the globe talking on the subject. So the academy has a mixture of video, slides content, and then little tests at the end, and it has 3 headline subject matter: category management, supply relationship management, and negotiation. And the models, the model for category management, which is a 5-step model, and negotiation, which is an 8-step model, is how all our buyers and commercial people are trained. And we've even colleagues in finance have been trained in our approach to negotiation as well, so that whenever we work as a team, because we're very much part of finance, we have the similar learning and experiences. It's a fantastic tool, and we mix that then with face-to-face training. Hopefully we'll get back to that post-COVID, that you'll go down with Jonathan's team and train. And Jonathan personally likes to do the training for our hospital, because what's quite surprising with positive purchasing is we're really lucky is that unbelievably they're in Plymouth. There's not many global training companies in procurement that exist in Plymouth. There's one. But Jonathan's really passionate about healthcare and our hospital, so he tends to personally want to deliver the training. So that's our technical competence as a function. We've also put people on courses at Cranfield. So a couple of us have done strategic leaders programs at Cranfield. That was fantastic. A really great experience for me personally and one of my team. There is an NHS Future Stars program, very much soft skills orientated, that as we've probably more than a dozen people have been through that program, and that's residentials over 6 months. There's the NHS Leadership Academy, and then there's lots of in-house training and development courses around resilience, health and wellbeing, and I think in summary is you won't be short of options to continue your own professional development, and there is an expectation from me and a challenge from me regularly to my team for them to demonstrate what they're learning at the moment. So it's really, really important. So we will support whoever comes in whatever they want to do to learn and develop.
Brilliant. And how would you describe your leadership style, and how would your team describe what it's like to work for you?
Yeah, team. I think they'd say I was demanding and challenging of them, but I'm incredibly supportive of them all. I think I'm a Democrat, and I give them all the freedom to decide how they want to work, and during COVID as well, where they want to work. So they'll hear regular things. An opening mantra that I said to the team on the phone, repeated ever since, and they would quote this, that I don't expect any of them to work overtime or long hours. I want them to come in to be 100% effective, 110% effective probably for the time they need to be here, and then I want them to go home to spend time with their family, to rest, relax, do fitness, get out in the fantastic part of the world that we live in, to recharge and come in and go at 110% the next day. Now we all know, and they know, that from time to time we have to work a few longer hours because the need is that at the time, but I expect them to take it back when the pressure is off. So I feel I empower them to do their role, freedom, but I'm absolutely here and would be behind them and supporting them and sorting problems out for them.
Yeah.
Laughter is important, like I've said, and smiling. We have a joke, we have a laugh, but when necessary, we need to be serious. We work in healthcare, and the context can be serious from time to time. Energy, enthusiasm, positivity. Look, I get frustrated from time to time, and the job can get on top of you. It's we have a few sayings at Plymouth, and we'll share them with one that I can't repeat now, but one we have that's quite comical when maybe somebody's got a bit of a sour face on them. So so I hope they would say they love working for me, because that's the feedback I do get from them. But they would tell me that, of course, from them. So.
I'll interview them separately and we'll publish it. So we'll do a montage of your team to back it up.
I'll tell you what I haven't had. I haven't been brave enough to have a 360-degree appraisal anyway. So,
very good. Very good.
Then maybe I should do that. So.
And what's your view on kind of hybrid working, flexible working? If someone's looking at this role thinking, that sounds just like me, but Plymouth as a location might not be ideal. What's your kind of view on where this person can be based and do their job?
So what I encourage them, first of all, is we live in a stunning part of the city. So I'll describe my day some days. So yesterday morning, I didn't start my day till 10 o'clock. That's wrong. I got up at 7, quickly did a few emails, and then 8 o'clock, I got the dogs and I went up to the moors and we went for a walk for an hour, helping me make sense of the day. I had some important meetings that day and I just wanted to get my brain in the right place for them, but to do physical activity. The week before, Chris Rapson, who this role will report to, we had his appraisal and we went to a place called Bigbury on Sea. And we met at about 9 o'clock in the morning. Shorts on, it was a glorious day. Shorts on, we went on a walk, for an hour walk along the coast, a stunning part of the county, Devon. When we got back, there's a little organic cafe there. We had some food, sat there, worked out, all the way we're talking about life, objectives, aims for the year, anything that was worrying us, either of us. And then we just sat there looking at the sea, eating some food and working out, right, what's the next steps? So that's the part of the world you live in. You're not going to do that in London. You're not going to do it in Birmingham. I go regularly up and, prior to COVID, was working a lot in London. Most of my week would be in London. So we live in a stunning part of the world. That said, as far as where do people need to work, what's my view on hybrid working, etc., I don't care really. Is whatever is best for that individual, and obviously to get the job done where they're going to be happiest. I think given the nature of the task and the responsibility of the role, there's going to be a need to be on site from time to time. Given that it's a building, it's an infrastructure scheme, it's difficult to manage that remotely. Given that sometimes you might be running events on the hospital site. But look, 21st of March last year, my whole team, commercial team, moved off site, and we're still off site.
Yeah.
And we've delivered the biggest capital program we've ever delivered, responded to a PPE global, trying not to use the word crisis, but difficulty, built a lighthouse lab that is for test and trace in 4 months, which would probably normally be a 12 to 15-month scheme, built mass vaccination centres. And we've done all that while we've not even been in the same room together. So I haven't got a view on it, really. My only view is, look, you tell me what you want to do. As long as the job is done, I don't care. As long as the clients are happy, as long as you're happy, that's what's really important. Because what I can see is the outputs that we've delivered in last year have been extraordinary. So it hasn't hampered us, and I'm guessing people, some, don't get me wrong, I've got some people who are really eager to come back to work, and they don't think it's for them. But for those who do and want to stay at home, happy. And then from time to time, come in and spend some time on site. So yeah, freedom, really. Again, it's back to that empowerment, particularly for this role. You know, it's going to be a senior person within our team and within the organisation. So I expect them, you know, is Donna and Claire and the senior folk of my team know that they don't ring me up to say, I've got a dental appointment today, I'm going to be off site. I don't need to know these things.
Yeah.
If you feel it's okay for you to leave work early to go and do something, cool, crack on.
Yeah.
You've decided as an individual that you can take that time out. I'm comfortable with that. If we get behind on something and you've been taking a bit of time off, we might have a different conversation. But I've never had a need to, you know, Hayley. I find people, you trust them, they tend to do the right thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really refreshing. And I think will resonate with a lot of people. So lastly, then, we've got a few minutes. If someone's looking at this thinking, yeah, got an understanding about the trust, about Andy, his team, his culture, the role. Have you got any kind of last thoughts for somebody that might be looking at this and thinking about applying? You know, they're in a stable job, in a stable environment, but this might appeal, but they're, you know, maybe unsure about having a conversation with us. What are your kind of final selling points, I guess, to anyone watching this?
Yeah, I probably just reflected on my own experience of coming to the NHS. When I came in 2007, my judgment at the time was that, taking a step back, I was looking solely at the role and the remuneration that I was going to get. And what I would want to tell that person now is that what you are coming into, the role that you're going to be coming into is the tip of an iceberg that you're going to get involved in throughout your time here. And the opportunities that literally are just so wide and varied. It's down to that individual and how successful they are of just what they can achieve in this sector. I mean, it's just, the scale is enormous. You know, we influence about 150 million spend at the trust, capital program of 71 million this year, the biggest we've ever had. It's 220 million annual. Yeah. With the now new legislation around integrated care systems, there is this expectation from the government now around shared services and shared procurement finance functions, maybe across providers. So the opportunity there for more senior roles working across counties in respect for Devon, because our integrated care system is Devon. So that would be then taken from the north of the county right to the south and east and west. So that's Exeter, Torbay, Barnstaple and Plymouth. And uniquely for Plymouth is we pull west of Cornwall patients as well. Sorry, East Cornwall patients. I got my geography wrong there. Yeah, I would love to tell that person now is, look, when you come in, look, just imagine that in 4 or 5 years you could probably be couple of bands higher, maybe head of department.
Yeah.
I never would have thought that when I came in 2007, but it's down to the individual.
Yeah.
And I've got enough examples, not just me, Steve Carter, Claire By, Chris Rapson, Donna Ellis, numbers of people and people coming up under them now who came into our organisation, maybe from the private sector, mid-tier, and they're now in far more senior roles. And I guarantee you that each one of them will say, this is the best place that they've worked in from a sense of purpose. So try to imagine what's beyond the role. But it's really important to recognize that this role, you are going to make the difference in the lives of 457,000 people in our city and the wider rural area, and possibly 2 million. You're going to be involved in building something that is going to make a difference for the next generation.
Brilliant.
I mean, there's not many jobs you'll get involved in that sort to have an influence in that many people's lives. So yeah, exciting times really. Really do watch the video, the link that brings the construction project to life and the levels. It gives you the sense of scale as well. Do look at that.
Great. Thank you, Andy. I really appreciate it. For anyone watching this wanting to apply, please do reach out to me on LinkedIn or hayley@procurementheads.com. The advert will go live tomorrow, and I will start the sourcing process after the bank holiday weekend. So yeah, please do get in touch, or if you know anyone in your network this would be suitable for, I would absolutely love to have a conversation.
And then